So, algorithms are burying some great suspense thrillers on Netflix and Prime Video. Today we're digging up 8 of them, the hits, the flawed ones, and what's actually worth watching. So, let's get into it.
Where's my money?
I can get it!
First up is a small-town noir that wears its influences pretty openly. Director Jamie M. Dagg sets the whole thing in a quiet Alaska motel town, where a former rodeo champion, played by John Bernthal, is trying to keep his life boring on purpose. Then a quiet, polite stranger checks in, and if you have seen a movie before, you already suspect he is not there for the continental breakfast. That stranger is played by Christopher Abbott, who you might know from It Comes at Night or James White, and he is doing legitimately unsettling work here, the kind of quiet, controlled performance where you can feel the danger sitting just underneath every calm sentence he says. The tension comes almost entirely from watching Bernthal's character be friendly with a man who is very obviously a professional at making people disappear, and that discomfort carries a lot of the movie. I will say the script leans hard into some cornballs, seen too many movies dialogue, and you can feel the Coen brothers and Tarantino DNA a little too clearly in places. But as its own thing, this is a moody, patient slow burn with a properly great lead performance holding it together. The film is Sweet Virginia. Now this next one comes with a real pedigree if you know Spanish horror. Sister Death is directed by Paco Plaza, who co-created the REC franchise and directed Veronica, the film Netflix subscribers famously could not finish watching in one sitting because it scared them too badly. This is actually a prequel to Veronica, and it is set decades earlier in a Spanish Civil War era convent that has been turned into a school. The film follows a young nun played by Aria Bedmar who arrives with a reputation for holy visions and instead starts having nightmares she cannot explain. What Plaza does really well here is treat institutional cruelty and the trauma of war as the actual horror. The ghost elements almost feel secondary to how badly people can treat each other when nobody is watching. The shot composition throughout is stunning, honestly, some of the best framing you will see in a horror film this decade. Where it stumbles a little is in the back half, where the film throws in some extra haunted house elements, jump scares, and superstition beats that feel like they wandered in from a different, cheaper movie and slightly undercut the more serious story being told underneath. Messy in spots, but when the ending lands, and it does land, it lands with real weight behind it. The film is Sister Death.
Hey guys.
Wait a minute, what the hell is going on down there?
Oh, whoa.
This next pick is directed by Gabriella Cowperth-Waite, who you might know from the documentary Blackfish, and she brings a similar sense of grounded human tension to a much more claustrophobic setting. Here, we are aboard the International Space Station with an American and Russian crew, and the first act plays almost like a hangout movie, everyone cracking jokes and showing the new scientist how weightlessness works. Ariana DeBose, who actually auditioned for this role before winning her West Side Story Oscar, plays the newest arrival on the station, and her relationship with the rest of the crew is what the whole first half is built on. Then Earth has a catastrophic, unmistakably human event visible right through the station window, and both crews quietly receive orders from home to take control of the station by any means necessary. What I appreciate about this movie is that nothing breaks mechanically to create the tension. It is entirely about trust falling apart between people who have no real choice but to keep working alongside each other in a tin can with a few hours of life support left. It plays like a pressure cooker crossed with a spy thriller, and it moves fast enough that you never get to sit comfortably with how bad things have gotten. The film is I.S.S.
I've been watching you for months, and I know a lot about you.
I want to be upfront about this one. I have some real issues with it. A woman, played by Kelly Riley, is abducted and locked in a padded, soundproofed room by a man, played by Luke Evans, who insists he just wants to learn her name and swears he has no plans to hurt her, which, again, he kidnapped her, so that bar was already on the floor before the movie even started. There is a properly tense setup buried in here. Confined space thrillers can be legitimately great when a film commits to that limitation, and director Susie Ewing clearly understands how to build suspense inside a small space. There are individual scenes that work really well. But the movie keeps wandering out of that room to chase a bigger crime plot it is not equipped to handle. Our captor turns into an amateur criminal mastermind, and the story lays on some tired, uncomfortable tropes about dangerous women and men who were supposedly just misunderstood. There is also a housekeeper character introduced basically just to raise the body count later, which is the kind of choice that made me actively frustrated rather than entertained. The direction has real moments of promise. I just wish the script gave it more to work with. The film is 10 by 10.
You're a very stupid boy.
This one wants to be your new favorite 80s throwback, and I respect the ambition even if I do not think it fully gets there. We are in a marina town following a teenage boy who starts noticing his neighbors acting strange right around the time a local child goes missing. There is a woodland spirit involved, and there's a transformation sequence in here that is a genuine love letter to old school practical body horror, the kind of thing that made me sit up for a minute. But the film also really wants to be a teen coming-of-age story at the same time, and that half is where it struggles. The two young female characters basically exist as archetypes, the sweet love interest and the dangerous hypersexualized neighbor, and neither one gets much room to be an actual person, which is frustrating because both actresses are clearly trying to do more with the material than they are given. It ends up feeling like two different, tonally mismatched movies stitched together. A decent creature feature and a fairly thin teen sex comedy, and neither half really strengthens the other. There are individual moments here worth seeing. I just would not go in expecting the whole thing to hang together. The film is The Wretched. Real quick, we are right around the halfway point of this list, and if you are enjoying it so far, clicking subscribe honestly is the best way to support the channel. It tells the algorithm you actually want more of this, and it helps me keep putting these out twice a week. A like on the video helps too, more than you would probably guess. Alright, back to it, because the back half of this list is where things get even more interesting.
I'm working on something.
To try and get you back.
This next one is the directorial debut of Gavin Rothery, who you might not recognize by name, but if you have seen Moon, you have seen his work. He was the concept designer behind that entire film's look. He brings that same eye to Archive, a quiet, visually stunning sci-fi film about a grieving man, played by Theo James, building an advanced robotic body specifically to bring his dead wife's consciousness back. He has already built two earlier robot prototypes before this one, a gentle giant who barely speaks, and a smaller, needier unit that gets visibly jealous every time its creator pays more attention to the newest, more advanced upgrade. Written down, that sounds a little silly. On screen, it plays like the loneliest, saddest workplace drama imaginable, dressed up in gorgeous Blade Runner adjacent lighting. The film sits somewhere between Ex Machina and Solaris, less interested in jump scares and far more interested in what grief actually does to a person left alone with their own inventions. The science gets a little hand-wavy if you think about it too hard, and I would not recommend doing that. Just let the emotional core carry you instead, because it absolutely does. The film is Archive.
How have you been feeling?
There's a case going on.
This one is stylish, confident, and honestly, maybe a little too pleased with itself, in the best way. It is the directorial debut of Grant Singer, who co-wrote the script with lead actor Benicio del Toro, and the influence of a certain meticulous, atmosphere-obsessed director is all over the camera work. Rain-slick streets, slow dread, the works. Del Toro plays a detective investigating the murder of a real estate agent, played by Matilda Lutz, and the suspect list grows fast. Her boyfriend, played by Justin Timberlake, her eccentric estranged husband, and a man with a personal grudge tied to a shady business deal. Alicia Silverstone plays the detective's wife and gets some of the film's most quietly compelling scenes, which is a nice surprise given how these procedural wives usually get written. The problem is the film is juggling more subplots than it really needs, and by the 2-hour mark, you can feel it straining a little to hold everything together. What never wavers is Del Toro, who is doing some of his best work in years. Quiet, exhausted, and doing more with a glance than most thrillers manage with an entire script. Come for him, forget the rest. The film is Reptile. And I am closing with the one I think might actually be the best pure thriller on this whole list. Written by Taylor Sheridan, the same writer behind Sicario and Wind River, and directed by David Mackenzie, this follows two brothers, played by Chris Pine and Ben Foster, robbing small-town Texas banks to save their family ranch from foreclosure. What makes it work is how grounded the whole thing is. No masks, no shootouts for sport. They are stealing loose cash, specifically to avoid triggering die packs, because the goal is survival, not becoming legends. Jeff Bridges plays the retiring Texas Ranger on their trail, and watching him piece together a pattern nobody else takes seriously is its own quiet pleasure. He is fantastic here, and so is Chris Pine, doing some of the most serious work of his career. If I'm being honest, the script does lean a little too hard into that sparse, dusty, Cormac McCarthy-influenced dialogue style at times, and the final showdown does not quite land with the weight the build-up promises. But the performances, the atmosphere, and the sheer moral complication of watching two desperate, sympathetic criminals do something legitimately reckless make this one close to essential. The film is hell or high water. Now, if you have still got room on your watch list after all of that, our next video is staying firmly in the dark. We are counting down 8 completely overlooked horror films that deserved a lot more attention. Every single one of them belongs on a horror fan's watch list. Go watch that one next.